Good day, fellow captains, and welcome back to the channel. Today we're going to be taking a look at some gameplay in the Azuma Tier 7 Japanese super heavy cruiser that when first released was, I would say, a little lackluster. It was decent, but it was nothing special. Definitely got destroyed more often before I was able to deal more than 50,000 damage more often than not. However, after some time and a few patches, the Azuma is definitely one of the better heavy cruisers of Tier 7. And today we're going to find that out in this gameplay. Now a little disclaimer before we start this match here. I live in a dorm. Okay, and you are definitely going to hear a bunch of screaming and crap today in this video in the background if you really focus on the sound, because I don't know, people are celebrating, something's up, finals are over, I don't frickin' know, who knows, who cares, you know what I'm saying? We're going to focus on this match. As you can see in this match, there is actually no division that I am part of, running this match solo. And so for the most part, I'm going to have to be relatively careful when pushing up and engaging the enemies, because I don't have the normal direct support that I would if I was with a division and I'm actually communicating directly with others. You can communicate with others with a headset or mic or whatever in this game. However, there's no guarantee that they're going to respond to you or listen. They may be listening to music or smoking on something that's going to make their reaction time much slower than normal, so you never know. When it comes to relying on blue players to help you in-game, I wouldn't put all of your eggs in one basket, so to speak. This is a game where we're going to be pushing up and trying to use islands at first. As you can see, this Azuma has a relatively fast rudder. This is an agile build Azuma, mostly because when it comes to dealing with enemy players shooting at you, they often don't expect a ship like this to have a fast rudder, and so it allows you to get away with more maneuvers than you normally would with another ship. Now you can see I just smacked the hell out of that Baltimore, and he had a slight angle to me. And as you can see, that slight angle didn't really matter. I still went right through his armor. These guns do not play around, and it is one of the reasons why I enjoy the Azuma, especially with armor piercing. When it comes to the community, on average, with Azuma players, whether they're on my team, whether they're on the enemy team, I've noticed that they will usually use HE. That's fair. I understand that you can set a lot of fires. However, I will say for the Azuma and for this particular build that I have on the ship, you will see the commander build and the upgrades that I chose for the ship at the end of the match. But for this ship and for this build, the AP is devastating. It is absolutely devastating. Even against battleships, if they want to sail fully broadside on to these guns, which I do not recommend. Now that the Udachi is done, it is time to push up. However, there's an Amagi in the middle that punishes me for making that push, and that's really just my fault for not paying attention to the map and understanding everything that has an angle towards me. Well, now that I know he's there, I'm going to maneuver so that he cannot get my broadside anymore. Those are 410 millimeter guns, so they can still do quite a bit of damage to my superstructure. However, if I stay angled at a proper angle from him, most of his shells will probably just bounce. There's a slight chance that he'll hit my deck and they'll penetrate, but I'd rather try to keep a slight angle than stay fully broadside to him any day. Those guns are nothing to play around with. That being said, do have to watch all the way around you, just to make sure that you don't get flanked by other enemies. At times you'll have enemies that are sitting behind an island, and it's easy to get focused on something that's shooting at you from the middle or wherever and forget about the enemies behind the island, and then those enemies are gonna end up pushing from behind that island and doing a bunch of damage to you. So just word to the wise, use that overview camera as much as you can. It's something that I'm still working on from time to time as well. Also, it's important to look at your previous matches and see the mistakes that you made and try to improve upon them. I have a fast rudder build, and I did not use it properly, especially in this instance where I'm getting so caught up with what I'm doing, I'm not thinking about the battleship that just crapped on me. You can see that Amagi is still shooting at me from ages away, from nearly 17 kilometers away, and he does smack me. And that's, again, that is just my fault for not paying attention. I got too caught up in trying to deal with that red destroyer, and I paid for it. So now I'm going to try to go dark, find some cover, recover some health, and find a better position for my ship. As of right now, either I'm showing broadside to the Amagi, or I'm going to have to show the broadside of my ship to the Massachusetts, and either way, it's all bad for me. So I have to find a better position. As you can see, Amagi's still engaging me from over the island and still doing a lot of damage. Thankfully, my friendly battleships down in Alpha, they deal with the Massachusetts, so that's no longer a threat to me. You can see I don't have any repairs anymore. I have 6,821 health. Now I'm gonna have to play this game close to the chest. Now I'm gonna have to be extremely careful when engaging the enemy and keeping my angles intelligent when it comes to regarding the enemy and their positioning. So now I need to use the island to cover my maneuvering. At the same time, I'm going to return fire on the Amagi and try to deplete some of that health pool that he's got there. The HE on this ship is pretty darn good. It's phenomenal, really, and the fire setting chance is really good. So I'm gonna punish the Amagi for taking a chunk of my health pool, and at the same time I'm going to maneuver towards the middle of the map so that I still have the opportunity to engage the enemy and burn out anybody who's trying to push that Bravo flag. As you can see, it worked out perfectly. He may have taken a bunch of my health away, but in the end, I took the boat off the board, and that's one less ship that is able to do damage to my team. Now, when it comes to the amount of health that I have left, it does limit me on what I'm able to do in the match. However, I will say, from a community standpoint and making sure that players understand this, especially new players, just because I have this amount of health left, I have essentially one chunk, one bar of health remaining in the entirety of my health pool. That doesn't mean I should go to the edge of the map and not contribute anymore. The only time that I would argue that you should do that is when, let's say, you have the point lead, there are 2 to 3 enemy ships left, you are one of the last boats left, your point lead isn't that great, and them killing you is going to give them the point lead. Then maybe you should consider running away and not firing your guns. However, in this case, there's no need to do that at all. It's 770 to 122. There's no risk of our team losing if I die. So I'm going to continue to contribute to dealing damage to the enemy team and gaining global XP, gaining credits, and forwarding my campaign progress. Now you saw there with the Atlantico, my shells did bounce. With the AP, I will try to take some, what you might call miracle salvos that might not work against a battleship. This is all in the interest of science and understanding what your ship is capable of and what it's not capable of. So next time, maybe I won't fire that AP salvo at the battleship that's, 16 kilometers away, since last time it bounced. However, now that it's just a cruiser left, I'm going to keep that AP loaded, just in case a cruiser gets spotted side onto me. And I'm able to put some shells right into that citadel. You can see the St. Louis is spotted here, so I'm gonna take my shot. And, you can't win them all. That's just wargaming for you, and I just get an overpin. Even though he had a slight angle to me, maybe I hit a superstructure or a smokestack or something, but yeah, that didn't work out. Friendly battleship gets a fairly good shot on him, and my shell penetrates for very little damage. Sometimes that's just how it goes. Now, enemy ship is on the edge of the map, and yeah, he's just silly little boat trying to survive, and then he takes a shot at me, tries to kill me, which I understand, but yeah, then you should have probably turned around and actually engaged. So that's the end of the match with the Azuma, and as you can see, I got a Dreadnought medal with the Azuma, which I've gotten from time to time with that ship because it can be so tanky, as long as you're not showing full broadside to battleships. Because you have decent armor, the battleships have, the battleships at tier 7 have a fairly easy time citadeling your ship because of the fact that their shells will arm when penetrating your armor. So I would try not to show broadside if at all possible. It's one of the reasons why I run an agile build with the ship. So now with that out of the way, let's jump on over to the commander and the ship build so you can get an idea of how I build the ship. Okay, looking at the commander for the Azuma, I do use Azura Lane Azuma. Now, that's not because of her name matching the ship. I found that she's actually a good choice for the Azuma. Reason being, with the Azuma, you don't want to get too close, and that is one of the reasons having maximum cruiser speed and the incoming fire dispersion is such a good mix with beyond range. So you're increasing your range, and it's also making it more difficult for enemies to hit you once you're at range, and also increasing your speed so you can get away from, say, enemy battleships that are targeting you. That is a very good mixture for this particular ship. For the other abilities, other skills, burn it down, I would not recommend, because it's bringing you closer into those enemy battleships, making their dispersion even better. And no fly zone, it's not necessary given the great AA that the ship already has. Going down to the next skill, Igniter. I do like using Igniter rather than Before It's Too Late, because the fire chance is already pretty good, and it just increases your ability to set fires on enemies. With Before It's Too Late, it's not really necessary given your fast rudder. The next one is Fixated. Cruiser main battery shell grouping improved, and main battery dispersion improved. Super important for a mainly gun build. This ship doesn't have any torpedoes, so very important. Fortified, not really necessary. It does have a good health pool already starting, and it does have good armor, so if you use it properly, you should be able to deflect shells anyway. Velocious, you could argue, is a good choice, although I would rather focus on the guns since it's a build that focuses on the guns. Next up, we have Steer Clear. This is a agile build. So where you could argue that you might want to use the other two skills in this tree, I would argue against it because the rudder is your best defense against enemies that are targeting you, that have guns that are a caliber that can penetrate and defeat your armor. So I would use rudder shift in this case. The AP is already really good, and sure, you could say if you use either of these two skills, you could improve the AP. However, for my particular playstyle, I would rather have that better rudder shift so that I can avoid enemy shells altogether and keep myself in the game and my guns firing. For the next skill, we have Refill Station. Refill Station, I would rather have that ability on my ship rather than fully packed. The reason being, it is increasing your main battery reload time. That is your main source of dealing damage. And when you have a friendly ship in range, it increases your main battery range. And that is one of the smaller but still more important aspects of building this ship is your range, is staying out of the range of certain ships, or staying at arm's length so that when the enemy fires at you, they have terrible dispersion and not all their shells hit you. With fully packed, it's not as important because all you're getting with your consumables is a heal, a plane, and sonar. Sonar is important, but it's not as important in this ship. Moving over to the inspirations. My first inspiration is Nikolai Kuznetsov for increased main battery range. Again, we're stacking on to the range that we already have. And then Francisco Membelli, time to make a move, cruiser main battery reload time. Again, this is your main source of damage. You want to increase it wherever you can, so that's the choice that I've made, and I've found that it works out very well for these relatively large guns. So that's the commander. Now we're going to slide over to the upgrades I've chosen for this ship. And then afterwards, we're going to talk about why. Main battery mod 2, main battery traverse speed. These guns turn very slow. I would argue this is really your best option for making the ship viable in battle. It's your only source of damage again. So having those guns turn when your rudder is putting your guns out of action is extremely important because this is a rudder build. The second and third upgrades that are chosen here are the rudder and steering gears mod. So getting that rudder time way down. Again, that's why we're choosing the gun traverse speed. For the fourth one, gun fire control system mod 2, main battery dispersion and main battery range. These are important for keeping those shells on target, and even when enemies are kiting away from you, you are able to keep your shells on them for a longer duration. You could argue main battery mod 3 you could use. However, for my playstyle, the way that I play the boat, I would argue it's not really usable because you are decreasing the main battery traverse speed even more, and you're going to be shifting your boat around, turning left and right, and your guns aren't going to be able to keep up with you. So for me, and I've used it in the past, it just didn't work. So I would say it's not particularly viable for the build that I have now. So you build it how you like and see how it works for you. For me, I used it, didn't really work too well. Going down to the consumables, you can see it does have 2 sonars. The sonar itself doesn't have great range, torpedo detectability of 3.1 kilometers, while it has a detection of ships of 4.4 kilometers, so not great, not bad either. Reload time of 180 seconds takes forever, that's why I don't rely on it. It does have a catapult fighter that I will use either to fight off enemy aircraft that are attacking me or as a backup for the sonar when the sonar goes down to hopefully spot enemy torpedoes. As you can see, the repair party is 315 health per second. It lasts for 28 seconds and the reload time is 40 seconds. So pretty good, not bad. It's definitely not the strongest repair in the game. Sliding on over to the specifications, we are going to look at the survivability. 52.5 thousand hit points, not bad. A maximum armor of 305 millimeter and torpedo damage reduction of 22%. It's basically a battleship where it counts. Artillery, 310 millimeter guns, 3x3. Now, I'm gonna pause this for a second because these guns are where it's at with this boat. Like I said, it's your only source of real damage. If you get in close enough to use your secondaries, you're doing something wrong. These guns hammer, and you can see the way I have it built. 19.1 kilometer range, 21.6 second reload time, 180 degree turn time, 30 seconds, 5,100 damage with HE shells with a maximum fire setting chance of 30%, maximum AP shell damage of 8,650%. So most of the time I will try to use AP, however, sometimes it's not going to be viable. Enemies will know that you're there, they're going to angle towards you. You may as well just switch on over to HE, get some fire started. You can see the shells just still do quite a bit of damage. So even if you have to switch to HE, it's still totally worth it. The secondary armament, although they are the same guns as, say, the Akizuki or the Kidakaze, they are not worth relying on at all. If they happen to get a hit or two while you're engaged in battle, trying to get rid of a destroyer or a cruiser in close combat, then that's fine. I would never rely on these secondaries. I don't think I've ever got a secondary kill in this boat, so just something to keep in mind. Now sliding on over to the AA defense on this ship. This is why I don't modify the ship to have better AA or have any commander with better AA. It's not necessary at all. When it comes to maneuverability, that's where this ship shines along with the guns. You can see it has a rudder shift of 5.3 seconds. You can lower that. There's a way to lower that because the inspirations that I have are not rudder oriented. Keeping islands and friendly ships in mind as you're making a turn is important. However, with that rudder shift, I guarantee if you use it properly, you will be able to bounce battleship shells. When we start to look at the armor, you're going to see why. Concealment. 57 overall with a detectability range at sea of 12.1, which isn't terrible, but it ain't great either. When firing in smoke, you're going to have to be careful when friends lay smoke for you of 9.7 kilometers, so don't rely on smoke to keep you out of the fight or out of the enemy sights. Now, sliding on over to armor. The armor looks great. Just look at it. Yellow all around. 32 millimeter icebreaker, and then a 27 millimeter upper and lower nose armor. Pretty darn good, right? Now you can see already that superstructure is that tealish blue. It's not great armor, but what superstructure is. You will be taking shells from larger ships right to that superstructure, and it's gonna hurt. There's not a whole heck of a lot you can do about that except either be at range and hopefully only take one or two shells, or get behind an island to avoid the shells altogether. You can see at the rear of the ship it is 27 millimeters, just like the nose, and it does have that red plate right where I guess your rudder mechanism is to protect that from getting damaged or knocked out. It is pretty useful when you're going to turn away from the enemy and try to avoid fire. We're going to peel away a couple layers of armor here so we can get an idea what the Citadel looks like from the front and the back. And You can see that top plate of armor is angled, so that is pretty good from a close perspective. Now, getting rid of all other armor except for the barbettes and citadel, you can see this ship actually does have a turtle back. If you're far away and it's plunging fire, that might not help you too much. However, when you get up close and you have this kind of angle, an angle where your ship is 30 to 45 degrees off from your enemy shells, you will definitely be able to bounce a lot, and I mean a lot of shells coming in. They're going to have to aim for your superstructure. You can see the front of that citadel towards the aft or the nose of the ship is flat. So if an enemy, let's say Musashi, gets a hold of you and he punches through that 27mm nose of yours, he probably will get a citadel. But I don't think there's too many ships that can do that at tier 7 or 8. So it's something to keep in mind when engaging enemy battleships. If you angle properly, there's not a whole heck of a lot they're going to be able to do to you. When looking at the guns on the ship, the front plate is in the red, so it is pretty thick armor. The sides are a bit thinner. I believe the very back is 127mm, whereas the sides is 152. So we've talked about this in my other videos. When you're engaging an enemy, you definitely don't want to just face your guns flat onto the enemy the entire time. As soon as you get your shells off, you're going to want to turn your guns slightly, maybe 20 degrees, 30 degrees or so, so that even the side plate of your guns has a bit of an angle against the enemy. And if the enemy has big enough guns, let's say you're up against an enemy Iowa, he's got 406s, there's still a chance that he's going to be able to penetrate through the front of your guns. So I would recommend always turning them after you get your shot away, so that it's even harder for him to punch through your armor, since angling your armor technically makes the armor just a bit thicker. And essentially that is it for the Azuma and this review of the Azuma and how I build her. Now, I have started using a different commander with the Azuma recently. This game does not reflect that new commander, so I have showed you the commander that was used for that particular match. I am planning on doing another video of the Azuma with the new commander and just how effective that commander can be. If you enjoyed this content, consider subscribing. Leave a like, hit the notification bell for future content like this, and even comment down below letting me know any ships that you're interested in seeing a closer look at, any ships you're interested in seeing gameplay of, or even other games you might be interested in seeing. I'm Buckshot Bucky. Thank you for joining me, and I'll see you in the next video.